I want to welcome back Sean Patel, who's the CEO and founder of Prep Expert. Sean, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, John. Just wanted to do a quick shout out for an amazing deal that we have for college admissions process podcast listeners. We're offering 30% off all Prep Expert SAT and ACT courses and tutoring. It's live online. We've got the best score improvement guarantees in the industry. You'll get taught by 99 percentile instructors, and you can save 30% off when you go to the show notes of the College Admissions Process podcast. Grab your discount code for 30% off and click the link in the show notes.
Thank you, Sean. So great to have you again. And to everyone out there, please note that if you make a purchase through any of our affiliate links, the podcast gets a commission. But rest assured that we would only promote products that we believe in and feel would benefit our listeners. Thank you all and best wishes. Welcome to the CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today Evan Sprinkle, who's the Dean of Undergraduate Admissions at Elon University in North Carolina. Evan, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I'm doing well, John. Thanks for the opportunity to join you for the podcast today. Hopefully, some things we say today will be useful. I promise at least some of it will be.
I'm sure a lot of stuff will be useful, and we're definitely very happy to have Elon represented, as I know that it's become more and more popular for so many students and their parents. So, Ian, let me ask you, can you give us an overview of what makes Elon so unique, and what are some of the things that you offer inside of your classrooms and beyond that sets it apart from other colleges and universities?
Yeah, so Elon is known for its engaged learning environment, which I think is kind of a buzzword that colleges like to throw around, but that really is the kind of true ethos of the university. And so what that looks like for us is making intentional investments around classroom size and structure and student to faculty ratios where our students get to be hands-on in small classes in discussion-based learning. So I always tell students, if you're looking for a school where you can hide in the background or just kind of go through the motions, that's not Elon. Elon is a place that requires you and asks of you to be very hands-on in designing a 4-year experience that's going to really align with what you're trying to accomplish over your time as a college student. And so we're kind of known for having a faculty that really takes seriously the idea of engaging in meaningful relationships with their students. They get to know the students. They ask them good questions about how can we use this class to push you further toward your career goals or graduate school goals, whatever it may be. And for the last 3 years in a row, our faculty have been rated the best undergraduate teaching faculty in the country. And there's some really impressive schools on the list with us. So to be able to have that distinction, I think is pretty special. So students should know and be confident that when they come here, the entire campus is going to support their growth, and the in-classroom structure is really, I think, kind of what sets us apart from other places.
Well, that's terrific. Congratulations on that. And you talked about Elon being known as, and I quote you, your engaged learning environment. You reference class size, student to faculty ratio, which is on the small side. So students, if you want to hide, you're not going to be able to hide. But the great thing is that the professors are really going to get to know you. And Evan, I have to mention that the students at your campus, they are so happy. Your retention rate is about 90%, which means that that's the percentage of students that come back after their freshman year. National average is at about 70%. So what's the secret in keeping so many students so happy at Elon and wanting to come back year after year?
Yeah, that's an important question. And I'll start my answer by saying not only is the retention rate so high, but the 4-year graduation rate is now over 80%.
Wow.
Which I think puts us in the top 5 to 6% of colleges in the country for 4-year graduation rates. So I think what keeps students on campus and what keeps them coming back is the fact that they get to craft what their experience looks like in a lot of ways, right? We don't place students in anything. They still have to walk through the door and take advantage of the opportunities that we have for them. But I think what we're asking students to do is we're asking them to have conversations with themselves about what do I want this experience to look like? There's no linear pathway at Elon. And then when they start to think about, all right, I'm going to pick this study abroad trip and this research assignment, I'm going to get involved in these clubs. they've really crafted a meaningful set of experience that is specific to their goals. Again, it's not just plugging into a bigger machine and kind of going through what everybody else is doing. And what really takes that one step further is that starts at Elon on day one. So we talk about having a day one mentality amongst our student body, because the day you get here, that starts. You don't have to wait until you're a junior or a second semester sophomore to start to do some of those more meaningful experiences. Those things are available to you the minute you step on campus. And so I think students can do a lot in their first year, and that just kind of propels them to years 2, 3, and 4.
Well, you talk about your 90% retention rate, your 4-year graduation rate of over 80%, which is tremendous. Students get to craft their own experience at Elon, as you mentioned, and there is no linear path. Instead, again, they craft it based on their own personal goals, which I think is wonderful. And so, as the Dean of Admissions, can you shed light on the specific characteristics or qualities that Elon values most in its applicants?
Yeah. Like most colleges with strong reputations, Elon is a rigorous academic environment. So, first and foremost, we're looking for a strong track record of success in the classes a student has taken in high school or through a dual enrollment program. Now, we are really adept at understanding that not all high schools are alike, right? So, we have applicants from Florida and Massachusetts and California and Colorado and Illinois. So we're looking at each application individually and trying to assess what strengths that student might bring to our campus. Our staff is always looking for reasons to admit students, not looking for reasons to deny students. And so a strong academic record is priority number one for us. But also, in addition to that, we're looking for students who have demonstrated that they are going to take hold of the opportunity and again, kind of take crafting their experiences at Elon seriously. So, a typical successful student here not only has good grades, but they've been involved in their community. They've probably led a club or two in their high school or youth group or something akin to that. And they're really good at communicating to us how they expect that to continue in college, right? I'm looking for a college that will allow me to also do X, Y, and Z while also maintaining a rigorous course load. And so, as we balance all of those features in the review process, we really are looking at applicants holistically. So, not just their grades, but what else are they bringing to the campus community that we think will benefit our entire community, but also give them the ability to thrive as an individual.
Well, that's terrific. And you mentioned that Elon looks for, I'm going to repeat just a couple of things. Number one, a strong track record of academic success. Obviously, you're going to review based on the context of what's available at that student's high school. You probably get, if not hundreds, thousands of applications because there are so many different high schools. And in terms of how they weigh classes, what's offered, if there's any limitations and what have you, it differs. So I appreciate you talking about that strong track record. But of course, within the context of what's available to a student's high school. You also talked about the fact that you're looking for the students to demonstrate their community involvement while in high school, but also being really good at articulating how they continue to do that once they're on your campus. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Evan, but usually colleges are looking for two things. Number one, the transcript is important. They want to see the rigor, how you did academically in your high school, because if they admit you and they are looking to admit you, they want to make sure, number one, that you could handle the work on their campus, but also they want to see the type of community member that you're going to be. What did you do in high school? How do you intend to continue that while in college and contribute to this beautiful thing we call Elon University? Now, do you agree with that, Evan?
Absolutely. And so we always encourage students to come visit campus. And then once that visit happens, the following steps is really about building a relationship with your admissions counselor, right? Because that person is going to be the student's advocate through this process. So when we sit down as an admissions committee to make final decisions on files, right? Students from my territory, if I had one, that it would be my job to advocate for those students. So I would say, I'm excited to present John to you. Here's what
Hmm.
I've learned about John academically, and here's what I also know to be true about how he will engage as a student in the campus community. And so it's really important to maintain those relationships with your admissions counselor as well, because they're a big and important voice for you. So that campus visit is kind of an important part of starting that relationship. But we understand everybody can't get to campus easily, so we offer virtual opportunities. we travel a lot as a staff, and we're often in cities and towns where we can meet with students for coffee after school. And so having the counselor be able to advocate for their students is a really critical part of understanding how they're going to plug in at Elon.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the importance of establishing and maintaining that relationship with your local admissions counselor because there may come a time when they need to advocate for your students so that you do get accepted to Elon. Now, Evan, I know that Elon places importance on a holistic approach. You actually mentioned it, in terms of that approach to the application review process. Can you explain what this means for applicants to Elon? And are there any steps potential students should consider to present a well-rounded and thorough application?
Yeah. I think this is the question, right? How do I show you, if I don't have the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with you, what kind of student I'm going to be and what kind of citizen I'm going to be at your college? And so, first and foremost, I think just taking your time with the application. The application asks for a lot of stuff. Again, we're going to get your grades from your transcript. We're going to get a little bit more context of your learning environment from the school profile and other things the school will send with your transcript. But then the extracurricular section on the application, activities and distinctions, that's really where the student has the ability to craft a meaningful set of experiences for us to draw from. So, whether you've been a captain of a sports team, whether you've been involved in community service, what clubs and organizations have you done? Have you done a meaningful summer backpacking trip? Have you done a birthright trip, right? These kind of things are what we're looking for to really help us round out your file. So, the activities and distinctions section of the application really adds a lot to what we're looking for. And then lastly, the essays are important too, because I think that's a time where a student can go really deep on a meaningful experience or topic that they don't have time to do in the other parts of the application. So the essay can really add a lot of value in helping us understand how you're wired and again, how that will translate to our college campus. What have you done? What have you learned? What have you experienced that has kind of helped craft what you think you might do at Elon and how, again, you're going to contribute to the environment here on campus. So the essays are really critical too. But I think we're also just looking for people who are fun to be around. We are kind of known for having a section of the application that has 5 questions that are a little bit more engaging. They're not as heavy hitting as the more formal essay that students have to do on the application as well. But these are, if we're in your hometown, how should we spend an afternoon? Where should we go and what should we do? What are 5 songs that are like heavy in your rotation right now?
Hmm.
What cultural traditions do you look forward to every year or annual celebrations as your family value? And these are just ways for us, again, to get to know the student as a person, because we want to make decisions on people, not on numbers, right? So the numbers and the data are important, but this again really adds a lot of color and a lot of value to our conversations as an admission staff when we can see your personality come through on the application a little bit.
Well, I love that you talk about the fact that it's people, not numbers. And you also mentioned the importance of the essay adding value to the overall application. Obviously, the academics are clear on a student's transcript, what they did outside of the classroom on that activity sheet. But the essay really needs to add something new, right? We talk about it a lot in the podcast, how it's important to be mindful that every piece of the application, knowing what it is that admissions reps are looking for, but how each piece builds upon the next. Now, you mentioned the essays needing to add value. Is there one example that stands out, maybe an essay that you read recently that you thought, wow, this is really cool. I need to show all of my colleagues in the admissions office. Is there one
Yeah,
that you could share with us?
yeah, absolutely. One for my career that I always come back to, because I had a student write about how her personality compares to an everything bagel, which I happen to like everything bagels just personally. So that really resonated
Me
with me
too,
just
Evan,
as
for
a
whatever
top.
it's worth.
Yeah, but how she set that up was, I as a student, I try to pursue experiences that add seasoning to my life that I
Mm.
can then spread to other people. So the more that she experienced, the more that she learned, added more flavor to her life, and that made her a more dynamic person. And then she talked about how she used that to then like affect her community, right? And I always, that essay to me will probably live in infamy in my mind for just how creative it was, what I learned about the student, but also picking like a very common topic that a lot of people probably have experience with in knowing what the flavor
Hmm.
of an everything bagel or everything seasoning looks like. And so I think students sometimes fall into the trap of thinking they have to write a book report or a narrative or like a 5 paragraph essay. And don't get me wrong, structure and clarity and grammar matter. But the real value of the essay is the story you're able to tell. And that story in that Everything Bagel essay was just incredible. And so I always latch on to that one as the example to share.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that example. I think that's terrific. And exactly a simple thing like having an everything bagel, but she took probably the ingredients on it to really talk about her character, her personality. And so, again, it emphasizes the fact that each piece of the application has to build on the next. You don't want to just repeat what's on your transcript or your activity sheet in your essay, which would be a missed opportunity. So I was curious also in terms of applying to Elon, what are the different ways to apply? In other words, do you have early decision, early action? And is there a benefit to applying one way over the other in terms of being admitted, but also your merit based scholarships?
Yeah. So we have 3 different application rounds at Elon: early decision, early action, and regular deadline. You can apply to Elon through the Common App, which is where most of our applications come from. But we also have our own internal application to both ask the same question. So there's no preference given between using the Common App or using our own internal application. Early decision and early action have a November 1st deadline. If you go with early decision, you typically will know of your admission status on or around December 1st. Early action notifications are sent by December 20th, so right before we break for the winter holidays. And then if you apply regular deadline, that has a January 10th submission date, and those notifications are sent out in mid-March. So the benefits of early decision and early action, right? Those kind of signaling to us, Elon's closer to the top of my list. Certainly with early decision, you're saying, I'm committing to Elon if you admit me through this round. So admission gets more competitive as we move through the funnel. So early decision certainly gives you the best opportunity for admission, especially if Elon is your top choice. Early action is a little bit more competitive. And then certainly when we get to regular deadline, we're making decisions on a space available basis at that time. I think students, when they hear regular deadline, they think it's the exact opposite of the 2 early rounds. And that's not true, right? Regular is not the antithesis of early. It's just another option for students who might not be ready by November 1st to make that application deadline. There's still plenty of opportunity to gain admission through regular deadline. So these rounds are really flexible to meet the student where they are in their decision making process.
Well, we appreciate that. And again, just to repeat, you have an early decision round, which of course is binding. And then you offer early action and regular decision as well. ED and EA, your deadline is November 1st, regular decision deadline, January 10th. So I always say to students, look, you could only apply early decision if you're going to do that to one school because it is binding. But the summer between junior and senior year, if you could really use that time to complete your applications, your essays, and what have you, so that you're well prepared to submit before those November deadlines for early action. It's really a good idea to get it in at that time if you can, so that frankly, you
Yeah.
can enjoy your senior year. Now, Evan, I know that the overall number of applications schools are receiving continues to be on the rise. With an increase in applications, how do you determine how many students to accept or even waitlist when you don't even know how many of these applicants will actually attend if accepted?
Man, you must be in my head right now because that's what keeps me up at night, right? Yeah, you're correct in saying that our application number, like many others across the country, has risen significantly over the last couple of years, right? I think the Common App, the move to test optional, right? Just the mobility of the population, I think, gives people the ability to look nationwide now. You're not just casting your regional net oftentimes in your college search. So what we're really taking into account in this process more and more each year is demonstrated interest. And so a campus visit, meeting with your admissions counselor, attending our virtual programs, showing up to the high school visit when we're there, coming to find us at a college fair, taking us up on the opportunity for coffee when we're in your hometown. All of those touch points help us understand how interested and how serious you are about Elon. Because the students in our applicant pool that have us higher on the list and then meet all the admission standards that we've already talked about, those are the ones that I want to start the conversations with, right? And I want to figure out where we fit into those students' decision-making process, and then we'll kind of go from there. So demonstrated interest is something that I think matters to a lot of colleges. It certainly matters to us. And there's a lot of different ways to tell us and show us that you're serious about becoming a Phoenix. Again, there's virtual opportunities, there's engagement in your hometown, there's campus visit and event programming. And so that really helps us kind of cut through just the volume of applications that we have to deal with every year and really know who's more serious about Elon versus other students.
Well, I appreciate you talking about demonstrated interest and the fact that you certainly look at it. And of course, students, some examples of how you could demonstrate your interest include campus visits, college fairs, when a rep visits your high school, but also there's tons of virtual opportunities these days. Now, even if a school, students, says that they do not track demonstrated interest, it's important to do so anyway for your own research, right? It's going to help you determine whether or not that school is the right fit for you. And should a school ask for a supplemental essay and they ask why ABC University, you will be better equipped to explain what you understand about the college,
Yeah.
why you see yourself there, how you see yourself there, and perhaps equally as important, how you see yourself contributing to the great things that they offer. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I couldn't recommend a campus visit enough, or some set of experiences that allow you to do that significant research like you talked about, because you're going to know, I think, pretty early on in the process of visiting campuses, which schools will kind of rise to the top of the list. I think one, seeing it; two, learning more about the school from those in the admissions office that are helping with the presentations and things of that nature. But certainly seeing and interacting with the current students, being that tour guides or just students on their way to class in between
Hmm.
class times as you're on those college campuses, that's invaluable. And I think, again, it really allows you to then know with certainty where you are leaning in this process. And then you can even just say that to the admissions reps. Hey, I visited 10 schools last week. You were one of the three that really stood out to me. So now I'm kind of focusing in on this handful of schools. And again, that's valuable information for us to know that we have to do as best we can in arming you with the information about Elon you need to make an informed decision. But I tell my staff all the time, we're not salespeople. This is not a sales job.
Hmm.
This is a counseling role. It is our job to help students understand the value of Elon, what opportunities exist for students, and then connecting that to a student's long-term educational goals. And if we can do that, then the student will be able to make a confident decision on where they enroll, whether that's Elon or not. Hopefully it is, but we know
Hmm.
it's not always going to be that way. And so when students are here, when they're asking us questions, when they're sharing that information with us, we can then help connect those dots in that process. And that's really, really critical.
Well, I appreciate that you gave the advice to students to reach out to their local representative and let them know your interest, right? If you're interested in Elon University, reaching out to your local rep again so that they get to know who you are as opposed to just seeing an application come through is really important in the application review process, particularly here at Elon. Now, Evan, for students interested in a specific program or schools within Elon, and I know that you have six, right, that vary, so there's so much to choose from for students. How does the application review process differ, if at all? For example, are there any portfolios or mandatory interviews for any of your schools or students' intended majors?
Yeah. So largely, if you were admitted to Elon, you are able to enroll in whatever major you choose from that point. There's not a second step that you have to complete to then be admitted to the business school or to the School of Communications. Your admission to the university then gives you the ability to declare a major when you're ready to, in any of the programs we offer. There are a couple of exceptions to that. So first would be our nursing program. We are test optional in the application process, except for nursing. Our nursing program is relatively new. This is the third year of existence at Elon, and we've already seen tremendous interest and growth and really strong pass rates on the board exams at the end of the nursing degree. But part of the process of starting our nursing program was to require standardized testing for the application review process. So we still require ACT and SAT scores as part of the review for a student pursuing nursing. The other caveat to that would be our performing arts programs. We have some fantastic performing arts programs in dance, acting. Our music theater program is tremendous. All of those programs are audition based. So you do have to complete the application, pre-screen, and audition process to gain entry and admission into the competitive performing arts programs while you're also applying to Elon generally.
Well, I appreciate how you talked about the fact that you are test optional. However, for your nursing program, tests are required. And I just want to repeat this because many times, as is the case here, schools are in fact test optional, but for their more competitive majors, they may require the test. So, students and parents, it's very important to look at the college's or the university's website for the most up to date information in terms of that. But again, be mindful that if a school is test optional, they may not be for a program such as nursing. So we do appreciate that. And so, what is the percentage of students that applied and who were admitted that did not submit their test scores? And where do you see the test optional nature of the application review process going over the next few years?
How much am I beholden to my answer here for future prognostications? Right, that's the question. So we have about 70% of our students applying and not submitting test scores in this round, this cycle. We still ask for testing before you enroll, just for research purposes. So we do ask students to submit them if they have them, so our institutional research office can continue to evaluate the efficacy of a test optional admissions policy. I think we're still pretty committed to test optional for the long haul, but we want to do our due diligence and at least ask the questions along the way. In terms of where I think it's going, that's anybody's guess, right? I think
Hmm.
we open up Inside Higher Ed and the Chronicle of Higher Education every day and kind of see changing decisions with test optional admissions moving forward. I think we will see a little bit of an uptick back towards test inclusive environments. I don't know that it'll ever be wholesale across the admissions process anymore, but I think seeing it come back for competitive scholarship consideration or for entry into some of those more competitive programs, I do think over the next 10 years, we'll see that become more of a trend. But I don't know that we'll ever go back to seeing wholesale testing requirements as part of the admissions process.
I
But again, I
appreciate that.
reserve the right to change my mind because, as with everything this year, that it could change.
Absolutely. And, I happen to agree with you, but I also appreciate how you talked about the fact that you're test optional. And however, you do ask for the test if the students have them available for your research purposes, because that's what a lot of the reps have reported to me that they're looking at the trends. They're looking to see, our graduation rate's going to be changing, types of courses students take, how they're doing, I guess to determine long term, right, over the next 3, 4 years, whether or not they're going to go back. So I appreciate that insight. And as we've discussed, I know that you receive applications from thousands of high schools throughout the country. When reviewing applications from so many different high schools, how do you take into account when one school offers its students all of the AP or IB courses imaginable, while another high school may only offer a small fraction of those offerings and perhaps even put limitations in terms of how many they could actually take? So, how does the application review process differ for these types of students?
Yeah. So we oftentimes will review our applications by school groups. So all the students from a particular high school that have access to the same type of education is how we're making our decisions, right? We're not always going to be comparing two different students two very different high schools against each other. We're trying to make decisions contextually relevant within the context of the high school, right? So we're going to look at the 20 students from John Durante High School that applied together and see how much variation exists in what courses they took there versus what's offered to them at that school. So the school group review, I think, really allows us to maintain, again, the individual holistic value of our process, and then to be able to understand the context of the high school in that school group is really important.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, I want to emphasize to parents, you're looking at the review based on the context of what's available at the high school, because I speak to so many students and parents who wonder, am I being compared to that school that has more, that has less, and what have you? So again, we appreciate that. And another important thing, Evan, that so many people want to know is, what supports does Elon offer its students to ensure that they continue to be successful once they're on your campus? Not only for students who may have had an IEP or a 504 plan while in high school, but for all your students.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, just kind of naturally built into the environment of campus. It's a very hands-on and supportive environment while also being challenging. But again, with the small class sizes, with the relationship-based education, just naturally students are going to get a ton of support from staff, faculty, and everybody in between. I think even peer-to-peer, there's a lot of that happening on campus that
Hmm.
isn't official, right? But it matters in the process. Beyond that, we do have a great support services office in the Koenigsberger Learning Center on campus that can work with students individually that have IEPs or need residential accommodations, or may have a service animal that needs to tag
Hmm.
along as well. And we have a great counseling center on campus too, and a full health services center that supports mental and physical health of students as well. So between, again, just kind of the general environment of the education, the support services offered through our accessibility office for academic and residential support, and then the health and wellness center to support physical and mental well-being. I think we're really, again, investing in things that support the entire student in any issues they may run into. There's an office and a group of people to help work around those barriers.
Well, we appreciate that. And I always put the Office of Undergraduate Admissions in the show notes. Evan, if there are any other links that you'd like to share
Sure.
with us, please send them to me. And of course, we'll make it available to the students and their parents in those show notes. This has been tremendous, a great conversation. Before I get to the last question, though, Evan, I just want to ask, is there a question I didn't ask today or a topic that I didn't bring up that you'd like to talk to us about now?
I think if it's Elon specific, the one program I would be remiss to not talk about is our study abroad program. I think
Hmm.
this is another thing that is really what we are known for. We have over 150 to 160 different trips available to students a
Wow.
year. We've had a top ranked study abroad program for nearly 20 years.
Hmm.
And so study abroad is one of the 5 core Elon experiences that students take advantage of here. And for a long time, that's always at the top of the list of what students are most looking forward to. And probably what I get the majority of questions about is when, how, where, can I do more than one? And yes, we have such a robust study abroad program because we believe in the idea of developing global citizens. So part of that is experiencing abroad travel through what the Global Education Center offers on campus. So I'd be remiss not to mention that. And then I think the other thing is just to tell families and students that it's going to be okay, right? This process is complicated and it's serious and it's time consuming, but people like me and my staff, we work in this field because we believe in what education can do for families. And we want to, again, just communicate with you and for you through the process to help you make an informed decision. With over 4,000 colleges in the country, it's like hard to whittle it down to one, right? But it's going to be okay. Wherever you end up is where you're meant to be. There's going to be great opportunities at all the different colleges. And I think that's what's great is no two schools are really alike. And so I just want to put that plug in that it's going to be difficult at times to make that decision, and there's a lot to consider and a lot to weigh in the process. But what you do when you get there is maybe more important than where you actually are name wise. And so I just encourage families to really embrace that and not be too worried about, am I making the right decision? It's more about fit and what you can take advantage of when you actually enroll that will determine if it was the right decision or how successful a student will be.
Well, those are great insights, and this has been a tremendous conversation. We really appreciate your time. Evan, unfortunately, it does lead us to that last question, which is what are the top three pieces of advice that you would provide students and their parents getting ready for the college admissions process?
Yeah. So number one, start as early as you feel ready to, because trying to cram all of the research and the campus visits and the application process into the second half of your senior year, or really even not starting until you are a senior, is really going to truncate a complicated and intensive process when you're also just trying to enjoy your senior year, right? There is a certain level of needing to give yourself space to have fun in that final year of your high school experience. So to pile all that on kind of last minute would be really difficult to do. So I say one, start early. Number two, ask a lot of questions. Again, admissions folks like to talk. And so if you have a question along the way, ask it. It is better to ask it and to get the answer than to just leave yourself wondering what the answer might be. So that's always an important one. And number three, and we've already talked about this, but it bears repeating: visit, visit, visit.
Hmm.
The campus visit is probably the most impactful thing in the process of trying to decide which campus is the one you're going to choose. And I always tell students, if you can, you should visit more than once, because if you visit pre-application, your filter probably involves, like, do they have my program? Is the campus attractive? Is it in a place that I would be excited about? Did I learn enough and feel enough excitement to continue moving forward? When you visit after you've been admitted, that lens is even deeper and more narrow and more specific. Can I see myself as part of this community? What are the residence halls like? What are the dining halls and the campus food options like? Are the students happy? You start to switch from checking off your list to more experiential understandings of the campus environment. So the campus visit process, I think, is the most informative. And if you are able to whittle it down to a few campuses that you can visit twice after you've been admitted, that's even better.
Well, those are great pieces of advice. Number one, start early. Two, ask a lot of questions. And number three, visit, visit, visit. But I appreciate what you said. If at all possible, and sometimes, it's financial, right? It's
Sure.
expensive if you're
Sure.
traveling across the country. Sometimes it simply has to do with time, right? To try
Right.
to manage everybody's schedule, particularly if you're trying to go and visit a campus while they're in session. But you talked about visiting before applying, but then visiting again after being admitted, because you're absolutely right. You're looking at things through a very different lens. I remember doing so with my daughters, when it was narrowed down to their top three, and we went back with the acceptance letters. And you're right, you're looking at it through a very different lens. And if you're going to be spending 4 years on a campus, you owe it to yourself, if you can, to make those visits. Evan, I'm so happy, as I know that this conversation is going to help so many students and their parents as they navigate the process. I do hope to have you again. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, John. It was a pleasure.
The pleasure was all ours. And to everyone out there, good luck with your college search. Take care, everyone, and best wishes. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The CAP.
Hey John, this is Grace from the University of Florida. What I love most about Dormify is that their products are truly made with college in mind. My absolute favorite product I purchased was the charging headboard. Having the extra charger in my dorm room, which already had super limited spots to plug in, was a game changer. It is functional and seriously cute and trendy. I can't recommend it enough. Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
Thank you, Grace, for sharing your thoughts on Dormify. For those of you listening, be sure to check out our show notes where you could find our Dormify affiliate link and our most updated coupon code where you can save 15% on most Dormify products. As a reminder, our podcast does receive a small commission for purchases made through our affiliate link, but rest assured, we only promote products that we believe in and feel would benefit you, our listeners. Thank you and best wishes to all.